Hi kids, welcome to Miss Nancy's Bible College for Kids. Today's lesson I'm so excited about. It's in the Old Testament in the book of Chronicles, and it's called Two Kings, a Castle, and Some Very Mighty Men. And I love this story. Hope you guys do too. The Philistines fought against Israel, and the men of Israel fled from before the Philistines. So at this time the Philistines was whipping Israel. And fell down slain in Mount Gilboa. That's where the battle was. And the Philistines followed hard after Saul and after his sons, and the Philistines slew, which means killed, Jonathan, Abinadab, and Malchishua, the sons of Saul. And the battle went sore against Saul. And the archers hit him, and he was wounded of the archers. So we know it's a bow and arrow, archers like that, is what caused Saul's death. Then said Saul to his armor-bearer, Draw thy sword and thrust me through therewith, lest these uncircumcised come and abuse me. He didn't want to be abused and everything before he died, but his armor-bearer would not. Saul was the king, for he was sore afraid. I would have been too. So Saul took a sword and fell on it. So Saul committed suicide after he was wounded of the archers. And when his armor-bearer saw that Saul was dead, he fell likewise on his sword and died. So Saul died, and his 3 sons, and all his house died together. And when all the men of Israel that were in the valley saw that they had fled, and that Saul and his sons were dead, they then forsook their cities and fled, and the Philistines came and dwelt in them. So they took over their cities. And it came to pass on the morrow, when the Philistines came to strip the slain, so they was going to take their garments. Garments was a big thing back then. But they came to strip the slain, that they found Saul and his sons fallen in Mount Gilboa. And when they had stripped him, they took his head and his armor, and sent into the land of the Philistines round about. I see this as smack talking, man. They done what they done, and they was proud about it. To carry tidings unto their idols and to the people. And they put his armor in the house of their gods, and fastened his head in the temple of Dagon, which is a big false god. And when all Jabesh Gilead heard all that the Philistines had done to Saul, they arose, all the valiant men, and took away the body of Saul, and the bodies of his sons, and brought them to Jabesh, and buried their bones under the oak in Jabesh, and fasted 7 days. They were mourning, they were sad, so they were crying, wasn't eating or drinking for 7 days. So Saul died for the transgression which he had committed against the Lord, even against the word of the Lord, which he kept not, and also for asking counsel of one that had a familiar spirit. We talked about that. Saul went to see the witch of Endor, to inquire of it, and inquired not of the Lord. Therefore he slew him, and turned the kingdom unto David the son of Jesse. So Saul was the first king, and then David's the next one. Then all Israel gathered themselves to David unto Hebron, saying, Behold, we are thy bone and thy flesh. In other words, we're connected to you. And moreover, in time past, even when Saul was king, thou was he that led us out and brought us in Israel. David had a big part in a lot of things way before he was king. He was actually Saul's right-hand man for a while. But anyway, moreover, in time past, even when Saul was king, thou was he that led us out and brought us in Israel. And the Lord thy God said unto thee, Thou shalt feed my people Israel, and thou shalt be ruler over my people Israel. Therefore came all the elders of Israel to the king to Hebron. And David made a covenant with them in Hebron before the Lord. And they anointed David king over Israel, according to the word of the Lord by Samuel. He was the prophet. And David and all Israel went to Jerusalem, which is Jabus, where the Jebusites were, the inhabitants of the land. And the inhabitants of Jabus said to David, Thou shalt not come hither. Nevertheless, David took the castle of Zion. There's the castle, and both kings present it now, which is the city of David. And David said, Whosoever smiteth the Jebusites first shall be chief and captain. So Joab, the son of Zeruiah, went first up and was chief. So he did what David asked him. And David dwelt in the castle. Therefore they call it the city of David. And he built the city round about, even from Millo round about, and Joab repaired the rest of the city. So David waxed greater and greater, for the Lord of hosts was with him. Now we're going to talk about David's mighty men. We're not going to get to all of them, but parents, if you have paper and pen, you can take some notes about these mighty men. And this is in the chapters of 10 and 11 in 1 Chronicles. I love this information. But anyway, these are the chief of the mighty men whom David had, who strengthened themselves with him in his kingdom and with all Israel to make him king, according to the word of the Lord command concerning Israel. And this is the number of the mighty men whom David had. Jashobeam, I'm going to tell you about him. He was a Hachmonite, and he was the chief of the captains. And here's something he did. If you're taking notes, this is cool. He lifted up his spear against 300 that was slain by him at one time. So he killed 300 men with a spear. And after him was Eleazar. He was the son of Dodo, the Ahohite, who was one of the three mighties. David had many mighty men, but he had three that was over the rest of them, that was better than the rest of them, and they were all superb. He was with David at Pas-dammim, and there the Philistines were gathered together to battle, where was a parcel of ground full of barley, and the people fled from before the Philistines, and they set themselves in the midst of that parcel, and delivered it, and slew the Philistines, and the Lord saved them with a great deliverance. Now 3 of the 30 captains went down to the rock to David, into the cave of Adullam, and the host of the Philistines encamped in the valley of Rephaim. And David was then in a hold, and the Philistines' garrison was then at Bethlehem. So here David is. He's kind of by himself with a few of his men, but he was surrounded by Philistines. Anyway, he was in the hold, and the Philistines' garrison was then at Bethlehem. And David longed and said, Oh, that one would give me a drink of the water of the well of Bethlehem that is at the gate. He could just taste that cold, clear, cool water. And the 3 brake through the host of the Philistines and drew water out of the well of Bethlehem that was by the gate, and took it and brought it to David. They must have heard him say, Oh, how I wish that someone would. And these 3 mighties stepped up to do it. But when they got it there, it was a different story. But David would not drink of it, but poured it out to the Lord, and said, My God forbid it me that I should do this thing. Shall I drink the blood of these men that have put their lives in jeopardy? I love game shows, and one of them is Jeopardy. Too smart for me. But this one verse mentions Jeopardy 2 times. I thought that was pretty cool. I just threw that in there, kids. But they had put their lives in jeopardy, for with the jeopardy of their lives they brought it. Therefore he would not drink it. These things did the 3 mighties. So you've heard about the 3 mighties. And Abishai, the brother of Joab, he was chief of the 3, for lifting up his spear against the 300. And he slew them, and had a name among the 3. Of the 3, he was more honorable than the other 2, for he was their captain, Howbeit, he attained not to the first three. So this is really confusing, and I'm not going to go through the list of all the names, but I thought this might be something your parents studied out and helped the kids with. Benaiah, the son of Jehoiada, the son of a valiant man of Kabzeel, who had done many acts. I love this part, guys. Remember the name Benaiah, because here's what he did. He slew 2 lion-like men of Moab. Also, it's just like an afterthought, he went down and slew a lion in a pit in a snowy day. I imagine that snow was slick and everything. I imagine that lion was powerful. But Benaiah went down in a pit on a snowy day and slew a lion. I don't know what he had in his hand, and he killed those 2 lion-like men, too, of Moab. And here's something else Benaiah did. He slew an Egyptian, a man of great stature. So this was a giant, 5 cubits high, and in my notes, every cubit is 18 inches. And in the Egyptian's hand was a spear like a weaver's beam. And he went down with a staff. So Benaiah goes down with a stick, more or less, and he sees this big old guy that had a spear like a weaver's beam. Man, that's huge. And he went down and took that staff and plucked the spear out of the Egyptian's hand and slew him with the Egyptian's own spear. I love that. These things did Benaiah, the son of Jehoiada, and had a name among the 3 mighties. Behold, he was honorable among the 30, but attained not to the first 3, and David set him over his guard. Now the rest of this chapter names every one of them, and there's 30-something. We're not going to go through them, but guys, I hope you love this story about 2 kings, a castle, and some very mighty men. Now let's get on with the questions and answers. I hope you can get some of them. I hope you can get all of them. What happened at the very first of the scene in the first chapter, chapter 10? The Philistines was chasing Israel, and they was doing a good job, wasn't they? Who did they find and kill? They fought and slew Saul's 3 sons, didn't they? And what happened to Saul? An archer hit him and wounded him, didn't he? Now, archers like using a bow and arrow. What did Saul want his armor bearer to do after the archers wounded him? He said, please kill me. That's more or less. Would the armor bearer do it? No. Why? He was afraid, wasn't he? He was the king. He wouldn't do it. But who did do it? Saul. He committed suicide by falling on his own sword. Then what did the armor bearer do? He fell on his sword too, didn't he? So, what did the men of Israel do when they found out? When they heard that their master and his sons was all dead, they took off and fled, didn't they? What did the Philistines do? They came and dwelt in all their cities. And all this happened where? In Mount Gilboa. And what did the Philistines do when they came to strip the slain the next day? They stripped Saul. They took his head and his armor and sent it out to all the Philistines to carry tidings to who? To the idols that they had and to all the people there. Where did they put Saul's armor? In the house of their gods. They didn't have the same God we did. They had little gods. Some of them was made of wood, stone, glass, you name it. What'd they do with his head? They put it in the temple of Dagon, another one of their big false gods. And what did the valiant men do when they found out about Saul and his sons? They went and took his body and his sons' bodies, and they brought him to where? Jabesh. And what'd they do with them? They buried them, their bones, under an oak there at Jabesh. And then what did they do? They fasted for 7 days. They was mourning bad. Why did they do that? The Bible said that Saul died because of what? The sin that he committed against the Lord. And what was the one thing that it mentioned about Saul doing why he's paying the price? He went to the witch of Endor, to someone with a familiar spirit, instead of asking God, didn't he? But what did Israel do then? Well, David comes on the scene because Saul's gone, and they start to make him king, didn't they? And what they say to him? They said, we are bone of thy bone, flesh of all thy flesh. And all the elders came and anointed him, and all went to Jerusalem and made King David the king. What did David take? It was a place. It was a castle. Where was it at? In Zion, the city of David. And who was his chief? Joab. And why did he get to be the chief? Because he smote all the Jebusites, didn't he? And why did David keep getting greater and greater? The Lord of hosts was with him. And then we're going to talk about the mighty men, a few mighty men. Jashobeam, what did he do? He killed 300 strong, mighty men at one time, didn't he? And then Eleazar, what's noted about this mighty man? He and David went where? To the middle of a barley field. And what did they do? They took that barley field. So they killed a whole bunch of people, and it just two of them. And then the three mighties went down to the rock or the cave. And what was the name of the cave? Adullam. And who was camped all around? All the Philistines. And why did the three mighties go there? I'll give you a clue. They heard David say something. What was King David wanting? He was wanting a cold drink, cool, clear drink from the well, wasn't he? And so those three went down amongst all of them, and they brought him that drink of cool, clear water. And what did David do with it? And why would he not drink it? He said, you risk your lives for me, and this would have been your blood on me if that would have happened. So what did David do with it? He poured it out to the Lord. And what game show did I mention? Because it was mentioned twice here. It's not really about the game show, but I thought this way you could remember it. He said they had put their lives in jeopardy. I bet you guys got that one. So the chief of the three was Abishai. And tell me some things he did. He lifted his spear and killed 300. That was Abishai. But now here's Benaiah. Now Benaiah, he's pretty important and he's pretty impressive. I love his story. I hope you guys do too. What did he do? He slew 2 lion-like men. Man, I've got that picture in my mind. I can just see their hair and their beard and everything growed out. But anyway, he slew them. And then what else is noted about Benaiah? He went down into a pit on a snowy day and killed what? He killed the lion. I don't know if he had anything in his hands or not. We don't know. David has done things like this, Samson. But anyway, and then what did he do? He killed that giant, and all he had in his hand was a staff. And what did he go down and take out of the giant's hand? His spear, didn't he? And what did he kill him with? He killed him with his own spear. And so he got set where? Over the guard of David. Guys, I hope you love this story. I do. I hope you can read it for yourself someday. But you remember, you can be a mighty man. You're just kids, but God wants you to do something. Talk for him. Pray to him. Tell others about his son. He's worthy. Then you can be a mighty man in the Lord's eyes. I hope each of you are. See you next time. Bye, babies.